Good evening. Welcome to this episode of Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is Elizabeth McGee. I am the host for tonight's show, and we're just going to get going. I have, again, a lot of meat prepared at the dinner hour. So that's my little tagline. So I'm going to start with, I have three linear threads that I want to go down. I'm going to have to dovetail a little bit back and forth, so I hope you can stay with me. But we're going to pick up, I have been teaching in the last two series on mythology, but actually not like you would think. So I'm going to start tonight with a quote, because I have done two shows on, last week, the Olympians versus the Titans, unpacked that a little bit, and before that, this whole concept of mythology and the time of chaos. So I hope you are up to speed a little bit on these two preceding shows, because it'll give you a lot of the background where I'm going to jump off. But in Hebraic worldview, the world has been divided into three ages. The first one was the age of chaos, which is truly all the early mythologies of the world come from this time, and it really is a time of gods and demigods. That is really true. Now, from then I went into the whole, after the flood, the whole concept of this huge war. It's always called the War of the Titans versus Olympians. And the Olympians end up winning, and what that really meant, and the players. So, now, the unfortunate thing, and this is where I want to start with a quote I found, and it says, only a few decades ago, and actually I don't know where this comes from. I just cut and paste so much stuff on YouTube, on Google. But if I ever write my book someday, I will have footnotes for everything. Only a few decades ago, it was commonplace for Greek and Roman mythology to be taught in schools, using the classic works of Homer, Virgil, and other ancient authors. Now it is less common. It's almost actually extinct. Now it is less common, partly because of the emphasis on science, but mainly because people have forgotten what it means and find it very confusing. Most people won't wonder why it was taught in the first place. Basically, it has been inherited from the Renaissance period, when the works of ancient authors became common knowledge again. Probably the greatest assault on the classics has been the theory of evolution. If the Greek mythology starts with Noah, and you are not supposed to believe in someone called Noah, then clearly the Greek mythology is impossible to understand. Okay, so let's just unpack what I really just said. Now, I have said this before. I do believe the ancients were way more brilliant than we are. I do. I believe that past generations had much more knowledge in a lot of ways and understanding than we do. As it has stated, the classics, the writings of the ancients, they valued it, they understood it, they taught it, disseminated it, passed it on. It wasn't just meaningless mythology. It was the history of the peoples of the earth, the 70 nations. Okay, it does start Greek mythology, which starts with the big war between the Titans and the Olympians, starts with Noah, okay? And all the ancient authors, I went through all this, quoted from many of them. They just talk about this whole worldview like, it's not even contested. The problem is that, in my opinion, ever since the Enlightenment, people think the Enlightenment was the great age now that we're in, where all of a sudden all superstition, all mythology, everything that's is done away with, and now we are just science people. We're all fact. No fiction, we're just pure fact. Really and truly, we have thrown the baby out with the bathwater, and this is how I view us. Literally, because we're in a war, we're in a spiritual war, and literally, Satan has put a bag over our heads. I consider the Enlightenment to be like a bag put over our head, and then somebody's punching us constantly, and we have no clue who it is or what's going on. That's really the state of modern man. He's lost all of his history, and he's like, I don't know what's going on. Okay, life is meaningless. Now that has happened many times, and if you read, the great, poem, but it's the story from Solomon, for everything there is a season. Knowledge is lost and found. In the Renaissance, what really triggered the Renaissance, started the Renaissance again, was they found again. Now, let's put that in quotes. All this ancient literature of the histories of the world, including Jewish texts, Kabbalic texts, much of it fueled by the Kabbalah text that was coming out in the forefront again in those days. So knowledge to me is power. It's all about knowledge. It's all about, it's being lost and found throughout the ages. Now, all that being said, because I've tried to demonstrate with the players, the Titans, and I have a quote here. Shem is Titan. Kronos is Ham. Prometheus is one of Ham's sons. These players are all named by the early historians and kept straight. Japheth is in, and these people lived 700 years again, 500, 600, 700 years after the flood. And it basically all went right back to a lot of the rebellion that had happened prior to the flood. Boom, went right back at it, okay? So, just the names of the players changed, so to speak, but the storyline is still the same. Rebellion against God. You've got the, the righteous and the wicked. But what I want to do tonight is, because I'm leading into a place, I need to get to a place where I can begin to explain biblically who the quote Gentiles are, because technically we live, and even as Paul says, in the time of the Gentiles, and really and truly we have and this is my big rub. That's why I say I'm serving meat at the dinner hour. Most Christians, most people today, and I'll put even scholars, have like a kindergarten level understanding, because we do not have this classical education. Most people are in kindergarten and stay in kindergarten in their understanding, okay? But the meat is really, it's deep. It's sometimes it fries my brain. When God says to meditate deeply, I've said this before, on the Word of God, He means you've got to really think. He's pretty deep. His thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. If you're going to even begin to get a glimpse of it, you're just... so sometimes I feel like my head's going to explode. Okay, but it's all good. But what I'm saying is you do have to meditate deeply. You cannot teach a child quantum physics. They don't have enough body of knowledge in which to even begin to put, the concepts together. So this is why I say we put a bag over our head all of a sudden with the Enlightenment, because we've lost so much information. It's almost impossible sometimes, as I've gone deeper and deeper, to try to explain some of this stuff to baby Christians, because it's talking another language. Okay, but be that as it may, enough of that. So I have been trying to, what I am about per se is understanding the mysteries. A lot of this truth, that this meat of the Word that has been deliberately couched and encrypted in language usage, word usages that at first glance are very simplistic, and at second glance are kind of, and then when you can finally get down to the sud or the mystery level, is very deep and complex. And my biggest illustration for this, and this is where we're going to get to, we're going into, going to break apart the word Adam, okay, is who the Gentiles are. Because if you don't know who the Adam, biblically what we're talking about up here, when we get down to the Gentiles, it won't make any sense. Okay, so we have to, again, build a platform, a foundation in which to build these concepts on. But it is absolutely a fact that the Word is encrypted. It was done deliberately, both sides, and there really is a very organized and both sides. I've come to learn a lot about what is known biblically as the other side. It has a name, the Sitra. Oh, I have to have my Hebrew in front of me. Arka, the Klippa. Everything that God does, it's like saying he just totally mimics. So there's always a flip side on the dark side. There's always, but everything originates as good and pure and holy and true with Yahweh in the light first. But here in, just to make one point, Ezra's, I do, and I want to, because people ask me all the time, I would, oh, it's the wrong side. I would recommend this book highly. This is a great book. It's just all these resources in one text. This is put out by Tom Horn's group called Defender Publishers, but it has Enoch, Jasher, Jubilees, Ezra, and a couple of the Deuterocanonical books, Maccabees. These are all books that are not technically read by most evangelical Christians, a lot of Catholics who don't read their Bible, and a lot of but this is information we need today, and that's why it's all coming front and center again today, so we can put all the puzzle pieces back together. But it's called, this is the Researcher's Library of Ancient Texts, Volume 1. There's like a Volume 2, which is the Septuagint, which is great. They're all great. But this is like, for anybody interested in research, really and truly, this is a great book to get. So anyways, let me go over here to Ezra. See, there's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th Ezra. That's a whole big, I can't even begin to go into that. But 1st and 2nd Ezra, which are Deuterocanonical books, meaning they are in the Catholic Bible, but they are not in the Protestant Bible. But there's a whole story about Ezra. I will tell you, from my research and reading, Ezra was really Nehemiah. There's a whole story backed up, but I'm not going to go into that. During the Second Temple period, pivotal time, they had lost everything. They've come back now. God, they got another dispensation, so to speak, of grace to keep moving forward. But they had lost the law. And remember Ezra, there's a whole story where he starts reading the law, he found the law, and they're just weeping. But I want to read this into you. This is Ezra, I don't know what chapter I'm at, 14. This is 1st, 2nd Ezra, 14, verse 25. And he has been in this dialogue with the Lord, and he is going to now write all the books, all the knowledge, the oral Torah, everything again. All right? And you shall come here. Now I'm just picking up right after this whole dialogue. The Lord, he has petitioned the Lord. He wept and wailed. He wants the word. He wants the law. He wants the whole understanding back that they lost. And God has heard him. And he says, all right, and you will come here, and I will light in your heart the lamp of understanding, which shall not be put out until what you're about to write is finished. Now, the lamp of understanding, in the Zohar, going to this is Bina. This is remember, everything starts with wisdom and understanding. Those are the principal things. He says this. Listen to me, New Testament Christians. The principal things: get wisdom, get understanding. Those words are very precise. They have a very precise Hebraic meaning. And when you have finished some things, you shall make public. That is called exoteric knowledge. Okay, that's for everybody. And some you shall deliver in secret to the wise, and tomorrow at this hour you shall begin to write. Okay, now and that you shall deliver in secret to the wise. That's oh my gosh, exoteric and esoteric. That is the esoteric knowledge that has been kept secret and hidden. Much of it in the Zohar. This is what's in the oral Torah that has been going forward to our day when it's all coming out, because everything's coming out in the open. So this is the testimony, and it says here that, so during the next 40 days, Ezra wrote 94 books were written. And then this is in many other places. This is not, and this is, Enoch says this before, and so this understanding, this is not just one text there, it says in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. This is in a lot of places that this came back to them. Now, when the 40 days were ended, the Most High spoke to me, saying, make public the exoteric understanding into 24 books that you wrote first, and let the worthy and the unworthy read them. In other words, this is the whole concept of carnal man. People, the first level of understanding, it's the kindergarten level. Just let everybody but keep the 70 that were written last in order to give them to the wise among your people. These are the sages. This was the job of the priests. This was the job of even the Pharisee to really keep this oral tradition, this esoteric understanding straight. These are called the keys to the kingdom. Okay, this is all what it's talking about. For in them, to give to the wise among your people, okay? For in them, in these 70 books, is the spring of understanding, the fountain of wisdom, and the river of knowledge. Now, what he's talking about here, and as I kind of, understanding Kabbalah, the words they use, this is really Chokmah and Bina, and what is known as Dot, which is D-A-A-T, which is a combination of the two, which is a complete picture, okay? Bina, your mother, I've been through all this in other videos, so if I've lost you already, I'm sorry. You're just going to either have to go back and find it from me or somebody else, okay? Bina, understanding, Chokmah, wisdom, and Dot, which is really comes together in the Tiferet, which is in the Lord Yahushua. This whole concept, it's just a beautiful, beautiful parabolic picture of what's going on, okay? So all that being said, we have to understand that this is deep stuff that is coming forward now. Now, one of the things that makes this so tricky and makes my brain fry, we're going to get back to, believe it or not, tied into the Olympians and the Titans and this concept, and we're going to go into the Adamic man. The words that are used in our Bible, and I just want to say this really quick because I forgot to say this before. The 70 books, a lot of this is a lot of the books and the knowledge that was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is a lot of the books and the knowledge that was in the Zohar. There's this quote unquote Zohar library, which we don't really, much has been lost, but I'm assuming that God, who is in control, there's enough for us to regain the keys to the kingdom that unlock these understandings. There is, so in the Apocrypha, in the Pseudographias, in the Deutercanonicals, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in a lot of the Gnostic texts, a lot of this understanding was always in what is quote unquote, kind of the fringe writings, but they were kept, and they were always wise. And the wise is just that. A wise person is a person who is full of oil, full of the Spirit of God. This is the program they run. They just want knowledge and understanding. The world has become strangely dim. They live in the mind of God. Okay, this is what floats their boat. So anyways, but a lot of the words, they encrypted this knowledge in a lot of these words. Oh my gosh, it's taken me years. So a lot of times it's so hard to figure, what are they talking about? Because if we had had a classical understanding, it would have been so much easier. But having to teach yourself everything from the beginning. But a lot of times, some of these words, I'm going to run through a couple of my cheat sheet, so to speak, to give you an understanding that these words do have dualistic, many levels of meaning to them, depending on how the prophet or the sage or the wise person is trying to transmit it for his audience. Because sometimes he knows it's going to be written by the public, and it's going to go right over them. Sometimes he's writing for a mid-level. Sometimes he's writing, and he knows the choice of words he can go, and he can really be communicating to another total sage who's on his page. See, it's really interesting how. This is literature. This is when you take a literature class and you just study all the deep levels of understanding. People, this is a very common thing that's done, actually. Because all right, souls. Or let's just start with this, fruit. Because see, the number one story that has to be unpacked today to put this thing together is the Garden of Eden story. I mean, and when you read it in Genesis, it is so for a kindergarten level understanding, Eve ate the fruit of an apple and gave it to Adam. I mean, if you're really a serious person, you're thinking, that explains the origin of life. I mean, it really, we wonder why it's just going right over the heads of most people and is not set. But when you unlock it and you understand that a fruit is a soul, is the same thing as a rose is another code word for the soul. A blossom is a soul. A lily is a soul. And a fruit is Torah. This is a Torah. And it's water. These things, see, like, these words are expressing realities that are, first of all, okay, that we're past the seen with the physical eyes reality. Okay, in the sense of soul. Souls. Because when we get to Adam, we're going to really understand what a soul. Let me say this, because this is the whole thing. Jesus came to save souls, right? Aren't I just preaching the most elemental part of the gospel? Jesus came to save souls, or Yahushua, in his Hebrew, Joshua, came to save souls. Nothing in there about the body. See, this is the thing. He didn't come to save your body. Nothing in there about your spirit either, per se. He came to save souls. Okay, so what we got to do is unpack souls. Okay, now the 4 rivers. Just let me give you some of this stuff. If you think, because this is really kind of funny when you get on Google and you start people. Okay, the 4 rivers. And Genesis talks about the 4 rivers. The headwaters, it's the word Rosh. In the beginning, there were 4 rivers. Oh my gosh, people are like all over this. But when you understand this stuff now, it's not talking about literal rivers. Yes, there is a river Euphrates. We can kind of figure out a little bit in a river Euphrates and Tigris. But nobody knows what the Gihon is, and I forget what the other one is, okay? But these are emanations. See, now when I'm going to go through this real quick, I got enough time. How some of these words are used in deep levels, because remember, this is why Genesis is so heavily encoded, and you really have to get a handle, because in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, but these whole words, heavens and earth, are just huge dimensions. What does this mean? And then the earth becomes formless and empty, or tahu and bahu, void, and it's the word in essence becomes full of chaos and deep. So, and then all of a sudden God says, let there be light, and there was light, and God saw that the light was good. So, I mean, this is highly parabolic language. But what we have to for words that really, in their depth of depths, are describing unbelievable, powerful physics, that God is, the mechanisms, the dimensions, the forces, the elements, the primordials, the gods. I mean, these words are all that are going forward and out of creating, just making, unfolding this thing, okay? But the 6 days of creation is a parabolic thing of this whole, the ages, the epochs, the days, the emanations of God, as it's descending from just pure essence. We know God is spirit. He, in the Kabbalah, he's like beyond creation. Who knows? Who knows? The best we get is God is spirit. Yahweh Elohim, the Most High God, is spirit. Okay. The 6 days of creation is all about how this whole thing comes down till we finally get basically down here to sort of kind of like boots on the ground, an Adam. Okay, even though, and we'll get into this, but but when you see these things in there, and they're made. All right, let me just try this. Let me just go through this really quickly. 6 days of creation. The first day and the third day are kind of concealed. We're talking about unseen realms when you get into this. The 6 days of creation correspond to the 6 primordial days, which also corresponds, and I had this word in Kabbalah, to a seraphit, which are symbols, they're symbols of deep physics realities, okay? The 4th day is the manifestation. We all of a sudden start to see manifestations of concealed work. So really the first 3 days are very kind of the behind the scenes. Then the 4th day you begin to get manifestations of works. Then the 4 elements are ultimately created at this point, the 4 elements. Every culture on the planet, actually, especially in its early literatures, talks about the elements, the forces, the 4 primordials, in other words, or the 4 rivers. These are the elements that are ultimately the root of all things. All physical matter that finally gets manifested it's a combination and a separation, and it uses the word dance. It's actually very beautiful, of these forces that are really kind of, and I think I've said this, computer analogy is the best, and the body the best, and that's why these are both, well, the body is a huge parabolic prototype of what's going on in the larger reality of the whole cosmos. And cosmos to me is seen and unseen, from the highest heaven to the lowest level of the abyss, the whole thing, soup to nuts. Everything. It's electrical work, it's biological work, the chemical workings, the mechanical workings, or you can call it its frequency, the wave frequencies, the vibration frequencies, the sound frequencies, the light frequencies. These things are all dancing, combining, releasing, reforming, doing their thing, creating. And basically when we get into the 3rd day, which is the highest level, and it's concealed, souls, the highest level of soul. And when I think of a soul now, and if it helps you, is a computer program. Basically, this is the program that our souls, which is our inner man, which is our heart, which is our will, the part of me that emanates the body. I am speaking words coming through physical organs, but that are expressing realities, thoughts, ideas that are in my head. And those are coming from who knows where. See, this is all a template. It plays itself over and over again of how God is trying to tell us. Because some people really like the deep stuff, okay? And we need to accommodate that. And we don't. And as Christians, we need to really quickly get up to speed, because I'll tell you what, our enemy on the flip side has had tons of esoteric knowledge that he has kept about how to work the cosmos and do different things in it, which a lot of times gets translated in terms as magic, and which is really sorceries and witchcrafts and all these things, okay? And that wasn't the case with our patriarchs. They were up to speed. They knew how to fight, so to speak, fight fire with fire. And that's a lot of the story of that. But anyways, these, on the 4th day, the lower seraphit emerged, and these relate to a lot, like I said, the 4 seraphit, the 4 elements, Nakash, Had, forget that I said that. Because I don't have my well, I do actually have a copy of it here to give you some of those. Like I talked about before, the Keter, the Bina, the Chokmah, is in a category by itself, the Spirit of God, the kind of the brains of the operation, coming down into the sort of this body part where it really starts to come together and function. Hesed, Tiferet, Netzra, Hod, Chevera. Okay, these things all have names, and I don't mean to throw so much stuff out because I'm just totally going to lose you and all this stuff. But these constitute the 4 legs. So remember Ezekiel's divine throne? There were 4. The wheels, Ezekiel's throne. This is the Merkabah. See, I always keep saying Genesis and Ezekiel's Merkabah. It's just like, oh my gosh. It's so intense what he's talking about. But it's so exciting to unpack it today with all our understanding. The 4 legs of the divine throne: air, fire, water, and earth. Now these are the elements basically, and which Bina, wisdom sits upon. Now there's just so much more. You gotta go study this stuff yourself. I'm just kind of throwing it out there, trying to tell you that these words pack